He stood in his own living room, a proud father, his children's laughter filling the air when the door burst open. Blue uniforms stormed in, their voices sharp, their hands rough, dragging him to the floor as his kids screamed. In that moment, Marcus Johnson's dignity was shattered, not just by the force of the officers, but by the eyes of his children, watching their hero fall. From wherever you're reading this, whether it's New York, London, Chicago, or beyond, share Marcus's story. Let it spark a conversation in your city, your community, about justice, dignity, and the systems that tear families apart. He was a man who carried the weight of his family's dreams on his shoulders. Marcus Johnson, 38, a black father of 3, lived in a modest 2-bedroom house in Cleveland, Ohio. A mechanic by trade, he spent his days under the hoods of cars, his hands stained with grease, but his heart full of pride for his children. Leela, 12, Jamal, 9, and little Aisha, 5. His wife, Tanya, worked nights as a nurse, so Marcus was the anchor of the home during those long evenings, helping with homework, cooking dinner, and tucking the kids into bed with stories of his own childhood in the same neighborhood. They weren't rich, but they were a family stitched together by love and resilience. The Johnsons' home on Euclid Avenue was a place of warmth, where neighbors often stopped by for a quick chat on the porch. Marcus was known in the community, not as a troublemaker, but as a man who'd fix your car for free if you were short on cash, who coached Little League on weekends, and who always had a smile for the kids playing in the street. He was the kind of father who taught his children to stand tall, to work hard, and to never let the world's weight crush their spirit. It was a Tuesday evening, June 14, 2022, when everything changed. The sun was dipping low, casting a warm glow through the living room window. Marcus was helping Jamal with a math work sheet while Leela practiced her lines for the school play, and Aisha colored a picture of a butterfly. The air smelled of spaghetti sauce simmering on the stove. It was an ordinary night, the kind that families like the Johnsons cherished for its simplicity. But ordinary nights don't always stay that way. They came without warning. The front door flew open, the wood splintering under the force of a battering ram. 4 police officers stormed into the living room, their boots heavy on the hardwood floor. Marcus Johnson, one of them shouted, his voice like a gunshot in the quiet house. "Get down, now." Marcus froze, his pencil still in hand. Jamal's math work sheet forgotten on the coffee table. "What's this about?" he asked, his voice steady but laced with confusion. His eyes darted to his children, who had stopped what they were doing, Leela's script falling to the floor, Aisha clutching her crayon, Jamal's mouth open in shock. "Hands where we can see them," another officer barked, stepping forward, his hand on his holster. Marcus raised his hands slowly, his heart pounding. He didn't know what was happening, but he knew he had to stay calm for his kids. "Officers, I'm in my home," he said, his tone firm but not confrontational. "Can you tell me what's going on?" They didn't answer. Instead, 2 officers grabbed him, one on each arm, their grips bruising. "You're coming with us," the lead officer said, his face a mask of authority. Marcus stumbled as they yanked him toward the door, his knees hitting the floor. Aisha screamed, a high-pitched wail that cut through the chaos. "Daddy," she cried, running toward him, but Leela grabbed her, pulling her back. "Stay with your sister," Marcus said, his voice breaking as he looked at his children. "It's gonna be okay." But it wasn't okay. The officers didn't explain. They didn't show a warrant. They just pulled him, dragging him across the living room, past the couch where he'd read bedtime stories, past the photos of his kids on the wall, past the life he'd built. Tanya arrived home just as they were shoving Marcus into the back of a squad car. She dropped her purse, her nurse's scrubs still wrinkled from a long shift. "What are you doing to my husband?" she shouted, running toward the officers. "He hasn't done anything." "Ma'am, step back," one officer said, holding up a hand. "This is police business." "Police business?" Tanya's voice rose, trembling with fury. "This is our home. You can't just barge in here and take him. Where's your warrant? What's he done?" They didn't answer her either. The squad car door slammed shut. Marcus's face pressed against the window, his eyes locked on his family. Jamal was crying now, his small fists clenched. Leela held Aisha tightly, her own face streaked with tears. Tanya stood on the lawn, shouting, demanding answers, but the officers climbed into their cars and drove off, leaving the Johnson family in pieces. The hours that followed were a blur of fear and frustration. Tanya called the police station, her voice hoarse from arguing with dispatchers who gave her no answers. They said it's about a robbery. She told her sister, Keisha, who had come over to help with the kids. A robbery, Marcus. He's never stolen a thing in his life. Keisha shook her head, her eyes blazing. This is some kind of mistake. They've got the wrong man. You know how it is around here. They see a black man and assume he's guilty of something. Tanya nodded, her jaw tight. She'd seen it before, heard the stories from neighbors, from friends. But she never thought it would happen to Marcus, not like this, not in front of their children. She could still hear Aisha's screams, see the terror in Jamal's eyes, the way Leela had tried to be strong but was trembling. The image of Marcus being dragged out, his dignity stripped away, burned in her mind. At the police station, Marcus sat in a holding cell, his wrists sore from the cuffs. He hadn't been told why he was there, only that he was a person of interest, in a robbery case. He replayed the moment in his head, the officers bursting in, the confusion, the way his kids looked at him. He'd always told them to respect the police, that they were there to protect. But now they'd seen their father treated like a criminal in their own home. They didn't even knock. He said to the man in the cell next to him, a guy named Reggie, who'd been picked up for a traffic violation, just came in like they owned the place. My kids were right there. Reggie shook his head. That's how they do. They don't care who's watching. They don't care about your kids. Marcus clenched his fists, his anger simmering. He wasn't a perfect man. He'd had a speeding ticket once, maybe a parking violation, but he'd never been in trouble like this. He'd worked hard to give his kids a life where they wouldn't have to fear the system, and now that system had come into his home, torn it apart, and left his children traumatized. Back at the house, Tanya was on the phone with a lawyer, a friend of Keisha's who'd taken on cases like this before. We need to know what they're charging him with, the lawyer, Denise, said. They can't just hold him without evidence, and barging in without a warrant. That's a violation of his rights. Tanya's hands shook as she took notes. They didn't show us anything, they just took him. My kids are a mess. Aisha keeps asking where her daddy is. Denise's voice was calm but firm. We'll get him out, Tanya, but we need to move fast. I'll head to the station now. As the night dragged on, the neighborhood began to rally. Neighbors stopped by, bringing food, offering to watch the kids. Word spread fast. Marcus Johnson, the man who'd helped so many, was in trouble. A small group gathered on the porch, their voices low but angry. This ain't right. One neighbor, Mr. Carter, said. Marcus is good people. They can't do him like this. By morning, Tanya had barely slept. She sat at the kitchen table, staring at Marcus's empty chair, her mind racing. What if they didn't let him go? What if this was bigger than a mistake? She thought of the stories she'd heard, of black men arrested, charged, locked away for crimes they didn't commit. She thought of her children who'd seen their father humiliated. She thought of Marcus alone in a cell, wondering if his family was okay. At the station, Denise was arguing with the desk sergeant. You have no warrant, no charges filed, and you're holding my client based on what? A hunch. Her voice was sharp, cutting through the bureaucratic haze. The sergeant shrugged, pointing her to a detective who finally revealed the story. A convenience store robbery 2 blocks from the Johnsons' house. A witness had described a tall black man in a dark jacket. That was it. That was all they had. Denise's eyes narrowed. You dragged a man out of his home in front of his children based on that. Do you know how many men fit that description in this neighborhood? The detective didn't answer, but Denise wasn't done. She demanded to see Marcus, demanded to know why no warrant had been presented, demanded answers the police didn't seem to have. After 36 hours, Marcus was released. No charges were filed. The police admitted they had insufficient evidence to hold him. The robbery case was still open, but Marcus wasn't their man. Denise had threatened to file a lawsuit for unlawful entry and false arrest, and the department, perhaps sensing the PR nightmare, let him go. He walked out of the station, his clothes rumpled, his eyes tired but burning with a quiet rage. Tanya was waiting, and when she saw him, she ran to him, wrapping her arms around him. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I should have been there. You couldn't have stopped it," Marcus said, his voice low. "Nobody could have." When they got home, the kids ran to him. Aisha clung to his leg, Jamal hugged him tight, and Leela, usually so composed, broke down in his arms. The house felt different now, like the safety they'd built had been violated. The neighbors came by again, offering support, but Marcus could see the pity in their eyes. He hated that. He wasn't a victim. He was a father, a husband, a man. The twist came a week later, when Denise got a copy of the police report. The witness, who described a tall black man in a dark jacket, had recanted, admitting they weren't sure what they saw. The police had acted on a flimsy tip, no evidence, no warrant, just a vague description that could have fit half the men in the neighborhood, and yet they'd stormed Marcus's home, humiliated him, and traumatized his children. Marcus sat his kids down that night. What happened wasn't right. He told them, his voice steady but heavy, "But we're still here, we're still a family, and nobody, not the police, not anybody, can take that from us." Tanya nodded, her hand on his. "We're gonna fight this," she said, "not just for us, but for every family this happens to." They filed a formal complaint with the police department, and Denise was already preparing a lawsuit. The neighborhood rallied behind them, organizing a community meeting to demand accountability. Marcus spoke at the meeting, his voice raw but powerful. "This isn't just about me," he said. "It's about my kids. It's about your kids. It's about making sure they don't grow up thinking this is normal." The story doesn't end neatly. The lawsuit is still pending, and the officers involved are still on duty. But Marcus and Tanya are fighting, not just for justice, but for the dignity that was stolen that night. Their children are healing, slowly, but the scars remain. Leela writes about it in her journal. Jamal draws pictures of his dad as a superhero. Aisha still asks if the police will come back. From wherever you're reading this, Cleveland, London, Atlanta, or anywhere else, don't let this story fade. Share it, talk about it. Demand change in your city, in your community, because what happened to Marcus Johnson isn't just one man's story. It's a call to action for all of us.